Today, I am talking to Sean Fourie, who is a keyboard player, composer for TV, generally adverts, film series, and he is also, as a point of interest, he is the son of the great jazz guitarist Johnny Fourie. So, yeah, welcome to the chat.
Thank you for that glowing introduction. It's lovely to be here with you, and thank you for having me on board.
So, I'd like to start like at the beginning. You're the son of Johnny Fourie, who's like a very well celebrated icon, I would say, of South African music. What was it like growing up in that environment? Like from a young age, was music in the air at home, or was there,
No, well, my dad was part of a group of legendary musicians at the time, Henny Becker, Johnny Boshoff, and himself. And they were like the guys in the industry at the time, session musos and jazz heads, like perfection. And so myself and Johnny's son Ray Boshoff, and Henny Becker's son Chris Becker, we grew up in that environment. My dad was playing records all the time, John Coltrane and Charlie Parker, all that stuff was in the house all the time. So we sort of naturally gravitated towards playing instruments as kids, and we formed our own little band at the age of years old already, and we were playing, and we were actually doing ridiculous stuff at the time, considering our age. And then there was always the pressure from our fathers to perform and to be the best, and that was always quite difficult. And as we grew up and got older, my dad actually took me out of school early on, and said, "I'll take you out of school, but you've got to practice the piano for the time that you would be in school." So my dad took me out of school. And he took me out of school, it was 3 months of standard 6, which was quite a thing. I did eventually go on to do my matric, just to give myself that little thing. So I did eventually get my matric without doing 6, 7, 8, or 9. So but then we as kids, Ray, myself, and Chris, we started playing with my father in the Johnny Fourie band. We played for 10 years with him, and it was amazing. It was intense, a lot of pressure to perform. You're playing this hectic music, we improvising, and when it was good, it was good. But when I made mistakes, the glare from my father coming across the stage was hectic, dude. I would just get this look. But that was good. It taught me a lot about the pressure of music and playing that heavy jazz stuff. I've since moved away from the jazz in the sense that I'm not looking to be like an intense jazz player playing intense solos. I'm looking for a much simpler form of music, and that is the beauty of simplicity of the song, rather than of musical prowess. If that's, without any disrespect to jazz musicians or anybody out there who wants to be the next Frank Gambale or Billy Cobham or anything like that, but I'm into creating music that is emotionally moving, and a lot of that is based in simplicity rather than difficult stuff, So that's where I've come to. However, having said that, in terms of film scoring, you look at someone like John Williams, and those guys are incredible, or Hans Zimmer, but a lot of it's based in very simple melody stuff like that, So that's where I am. So yes, playing with my dad was an incredible gift. I miss him terribly. I wish he had been around to see the incredible strides that have been made in terms of learning online with people like Rick Beato, and what YouTube has brought to the gift of learning for musicians. It's just so much information. You don't really need to go to Berkeley and spend $58,000 a year to learn what is out there. It's there for free.
On the downside, there's no more excuses anymore.
No, there's no excuses anymore. Stop procrastinating and stop talking. In fact, stop learning and start playing.
Yeah.
Because you can also, that can also be a barrier, is that I've always got to learn, instead of actually shut up and play your guitar. There's only so much. You actually need to get down into the trenches and actually play. But yeah, having said that, playing with my dad was amazing. And, he's not known by the greater general public because also years and time are moving on, and he's from a generation that people don't even know. But his legacy lives on in people, these students, a lot of the music that came out of from the students in the 80s, 90s. He's people like Jonathan Crossley and stuff like that are really great musicians who are living all around the world. His music lives for them. I mean, there's a guy by the name of Vuma Levine,
Yes.
amazing musician. And I was walking past a restaurant in Greenside one day, quite a few years after my dad had passed, and I heard this guy playing, and I thought, my God, that sounds like my dad. And I went to him, and I'd never been. I said to him, excuse me, and I must just tell you, my late father, you Johnny Fourie, you sound exactly like my father. He said, well, that's because your dad taught me, which is an incredible thing. So he lives on, and, I mean, his relationship with people like John McLaughlin, and the Billy Cobhams of the world when he was in the States, played for great filmmakers like Lolo Schifrin. My dad was on those albums. Lolo Schifrin, if you don't know, wrote the theme for Mission Impossible. That great, iconic
he did
theme.
some of those. He did. I think he did some of the Clint Eastwood
Yes,
ones.
he did. Yes, he did. The Dirty Harry movies.
The Dirty Harry. Yeah.
The Dirty Harry movies. Yeah.
I think so.
Great. No,
I stand to be corrected on that.
You think it is? I was quite surprised that he did the Mission Impossible theme, because that's just such
Yes,
a
true. I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah, and my dad, when he was in New York, did a movie. He was the session player on a movie that Lolo Schifrin was doing. So yeah, so he's, like I said, he's not known, but he's certainly left a mark through younger musicians. And my dad was also, back in the day, he played on all the Manhattan Brothers records and all those iconic musicians of that time. We played with Alan Quayler and all those people. So there's a huge history there.
So, in terms of bringing it back to you, what would you say was the biggest lesson that he left you?
Wow. Trust. I said to him once before he passed again, I said, what am I going to do? Because he used to teach me. I said, what am I going to do when you're no longer here? Where am I going to learn? He says, it's inside you, Sean. It's inside you. So you will find it. And that's one of the biggest things is he gave me enough knowledge to be able to help myself to learn. And I think that was a big thing when he said to me, it's inside you, whatever that means. Whatever resides in me has given me the ability to further teach myself the skills that I need to try and compete in this highly competitive music world of ours. So I think that's one of the big things. Believe in yourself. One of the biggest things we all as creators suffer from is imposter syndrome. I'm never good enough.
Yeah.
They're going to catch me out. They're going to find out that I actually really don't know what I'm doing. So fake it till you make it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, interestingly, though, I would say some of it, like a guy like Hans Zimmer, I don't think has imposter syndrome. I think he's very he's very comfortable. Like he will straight out say, I actually don't know as much as my musical heroes do, but he's very comfortable in that, and is comfortable in being able to say he does at least know how to give directors what they want.
Absolutely. He knows how to speak the language,
Yeah.
He's not the world's most schooled musician, but he knows how to interpret what the director wants, and he's able to delegate his ideas. I mean, the guy's incredible,
Yeah.
I mean, like the saying goes, this huge in film is that talent gets you into the industry once, relationship keeps you there. And that's what Hans Zimmer's been able to do.
Yes.
He's incredible. I mean, I don't know if you remember Hans Zimmer. Remember that song, Video Killed the Radio Star?
Yes.
There's a Video Killed the Radio Star. There's a scene with a piano player. There's a piano player. It's a brief shot. Guy's playing two pianos like that. Young guy. It's Hans Zimmer. So he came from this little pop thing, and he turned the music world around. He turned it from what John Williams and traditional people like Jerry Goldsmith were doing, and he created sound worlds rather than traditional scores, sound universes.
Yeah, and I guess he kind of broke the box open a little bit, because maybe things were getting had been like quite formalized. No shade on those composers, but things were so formalized, and a guy like Hans Zimmer kind of came and kind of shook things up a little bit in terms of his approach.
He actually broke down the barriers to entry, so it doesn't have to be all that hectic stuff. It can be a mixture of just a synth drone and a little I mean, that thing from Inception, Time, that piece of music, it's 4 chords, and it just revolves around. And the way it gets more and more intense, simply 4 chords, minor
Yeah.
chords.
Yeah.
It's incredible. You know, when you think of a score like Star Wars, which is huge and legendary, he changed all that for a lot of us, you know. So as well
Yeah,
as the thing, yeah.
I was going to say, in some ways, that sort of old-fashioned, like John Williams style of scoring is seen as a bit passé these days. Like you don't like you. It's like I can't imagine Denis Villeneuve. I can't imagine him using like that kind of John Williams style score anymore. Not no. Once again, no shade on John Williams because he is amazing. Like, and there's like when I listen to his stuff, I'm like, I have no idea how he did that. But that's not what people are looking for these days.
Well, it's funny that the movies that he scored for that, with these big Indiana Jones, Temple of the Doom, they don't really make movies like that anymore. And
True.
it's
Also,
more, it's more the Nordic kind of minimalist, almost dark, depressive kind of stuff. And also the barriers to entry with sample libraries and synths has just changed that. I mean, John Williams used to do everything pencil and paper. I mean, I use Logic and I can do a mock-up and I can hear what it's going to sound like. He hears it out his ears, but it's all changing. And AI is now taking that again, scarily enough. It's changing it. I hope that AI does not replace real musicians or real music. I don't think it will. I think it'll maybe affect the low-hanging fruit because you can do some incredible things, but you still need the human connection to be able to tell a story properly and not from a chatbot, you know?
Yeah. I tend to agree. I think it'll thin the herd a little bit, and I hope I'm not part of that herd.
I think we can meet too as well.
Yeah. But I also like I agree with you in that I've also been like dabbling somewhat in the AI world, really out of necessity, as much out of necessity as interest. I've been very interested in AI, more like visual AI, because for the longest time I've been like, well, you know, when you release music, you need to have a visual to accompany the music, otherwise nobody listens to it. So I've been messing around with the visual aspect of AI, but of course I've also been looking at Suno and Udio. I don't know if you know those.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I've been using Suno and Udio.
Yeah. And it's very interesting what you can do with them. It's very interesting what you can't do with them too.
I think that's the biggest thing, what you can't do, because it all comes out very generic.
Yeah. That's partly the problem. Like I've been getting calls from ad agencies saying, okay, we made this tune, but now the client wants to tweak it. And you can't tweak AI. It either comes out the way you want it or you try another prompt. So now so now they're calling me to tweak the AI, which is a bit of a weird experience because now I'm tweaking robot creativity.
But you see why they're coming to you, because you understand music at a level that they don't. But the thing is, AI is not capable of fine tweaks like that yet. I mean, remember, AI is the worst it's ever going to be now. It's only going to get better.
True.
But it's definitely going to affect, you know, the low-hanging things and people with small budgets, because you can create stuff that is usable for film or stuff in the music. And I think more than 90% of the average listener doesn't know the difference between AI and real human content. And what's happening is, as the generations are coming, new generations, they're not going to care how it was made or who it was going to be made. Does it resonate with me? Do I like it? They're not going to be worried about who made it or how it was made, or if it was a robot, because it's going to be the norm.
Yeah.
However,
for example, in my context, when I'm like making video, it's good enough. Like I know that it's not like, you know, amazingly shot, world-class cinematographer kind of material, but it's good enough for me for visual stuff to be able to say, this is what the idea is, and I can use it. And as such, I think there are a ton of people who are not musicians saying the same thing about AI-generated music as well. It's good enough.
I think, no. I think what's going to happen with AI, I mean, you say the agencies are starting to use it. People are going to eventually suffer AI fatigue. Clients, they're going to say, I don't want this. I want Hugh's music. I want to hear what Hugh is bringing to it, not what a robot's trained on thousands of other musicians. I want to, what does Hugh bring to our story? And I think that's hopefully where we'll get to, where real directors and stuff want that human connection. And I know that AI has been banned on a lot of platforms. Bandcamp, for one, you can't use AI. There's a
Yes.
production company that Alan Lazar is setting up in the States, and it states there clearly you cannot use AI. You will be kicked off the platform. So there is a move towards doing that, and I hope that does happen. I think we don't want to. We're not going to be able to get rid of the genies out the box. We're going to have to learn to live with it and learn to use it. For instance, I was messing around with Suno, not from a pop thing, but I said to it, create me a dark, brooding cello ostinato in a minor key, supported by an orchestral string section surrounding it. And it spat out quite a phenomenal piece of music that you could then use. But then again, it's doing it. So if I had to then take that and then copy it, it wouldn't really be my music. It would be a prompt that I did.
And also then you couldn't tweak it either. Let's say
No.
at the moment you couldn't tweak it. You would then and also to that point, at some point last year, I've got a AI vocal application that I use for, you can kind of make it say words and you can tell it what melody to play. So I was using this for a pilot for these guys who needed some music for their commercial, and the guy, one of the head creatives, was like, I actually can't listen to this because I know that it's robots. I can't, my brain cannot compute whether this is any good or not because I know it's a robot. You're gonna have to go and call actual singers to come in, and then we'll be able to figure out whether we like it or not. Which is what happened. I was like, okay, well, I guess it's gonna add a bit to your budget, but I'll call the singers in, call them in, and then then we were able to proceed.
I'm happy to hear that. That's actually quite encouraging. That is quite encouraging.
Yeah, but it does make sense though, and I think it's especially when it comes to, for example, like the real like grassroots thing of like just listening to music. Like when I listen to music, okay, on one level I can say you can give me something that a robot made, and I'll be like, okay, I guess on one level I can appreciate it, but when I'm really listening to music, it's sort of a turnoff to me if somebody tells me no, that's AI. I'll be like, well, okay.
I totally agree. Sorry to interrupt you. So you're listening to an album called this pull Steely Dan, for instance.
Yeah.
All that music is lived experience. It's not a robot, just soulless thing. It's coming from people who have lived experiences, learnt behavior from other musicians, and that is transported down to each person who learns the skill. If it's just a robot, it really is just add water and and you've got a Kool-Aid drink. This is it has no value to you.
Yeah. There's something. Yeah. Exactly. And what I predict happening, and I think a lot of people are saying this, is that there's going to be a real return to like live music and almost like live recordings, and people are going to be like, there's a real value in this. And because I can feel it in myself. Like I'm very like perfectionist as a producer, so I'll do the tuning and the quantization and all of that stuff to make sure everything's like exactly tight, or at least that's how I work for the last 15 years. Now I'm like, well, and Rick Beato made this point really well, actually, which is to say, in a way, I've been robotizing my own processes instead of like digging into what makes me a human. And I think I'm sort of at some sort of threshold where I'm seeing the error of my ways here. I'm like, actually, I need to start digging into imperfections more and figuring out.
I couldn't. People like Rick Beato and Christian Henson. I don't know if you follow Christian Henson. He was one of the founders of Spitfire Audio. Yeah. So he also a film writer and stuff like that. Also, not a schooled a musician, but he's done some remarkable work. And he also talks about the imperfections of the music, especially when it comes to writing music and quantizing. Don't quantize it 100%. Maybe to 80%. Let it be a little
Yeah.
loose around the edges and let those imperfections happen. I'm learning that stuff now, Yeah, it's about the imperfections. But the other thing we need to do is to be imperfectionists, we need to get to work. And I must be honest that the industry seems to be in a bit of a spiral at the moment. So there's not a lot of work out there, a lot of stuff that is coming, not just here in South Africa, but I know in the UK, people that I know in post-production are struggling with the fact that there's not a lot of work,
Yeah, I think I agree with you that I think it has been quiet, certainly on my front as well. I mean, I'm still in the process of breaking into like film and TV. Like my work has really been in advertising, and advertising has people are making or the budget for advertising in terms of those like sort of high concept, like really like huge budget adverts. I think those just don't provide enough bang for buck for the clients anymore.
I think
And I
you're
think
right.
the way that people are marketing is changing. Like it's influencer driven now. The budgets, I don't think the budgets are getting smaller, but they're allocating the budgets differently.
Friendly.
So, for example, what I've seen an uptick of in the last year is like audio identities or audio signatures. So, like in the same way that brands get a logo made for them and then a style guide with that logo so that all of their material has like a unified look and all of that. I've seen an uptick in that kind of work on an audio side because I think having like a little logo, like the Netflix, yeah, and I've started calling it an audio logo or an audio brand. There's been an uptick in that because I think that makes a lot more sense to a brand these days to be able to say, okay, we're not going to necessarily compose music for our ads, but what we will do is at the end of every ad, we're going to have our little thing that's going to make us sound in a way that it's going to give a
get it
it's going to
completely.
allow.
It's almost like that BMW one, that thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That little thing. So, and there actually, if you're clever, you could maybe market yourself as an audio brand specialist, creating audio brands for things, short stuff, and that's a new source of revenue.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Become really good at it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And look, if the trend continues, I think that is going to happen to me to a degree. I'm not sure in terms of film, and because where I would like to be in many ways is because I don't actually listen to that many ads or what. Like I have an ad blocker on my YouTube and like I try to avoid ads as much as possible. So in some ways it sort of conceptually makes sense for me to move more into like really where you're at with like film and TV because I love film and I love series, but I can't speak much to what is going on there in terms of like budgets and what's getting made and all of that kind of stuff. But I gather from what you've just said, it's a little bit quiet on that side.
It is quiet. I mean, in one respect, so I mean, streaming is a black hole. You can't get enough content. So a lot of stuff is being made, but it seems to be going to a select few group of people instead of opening up the thing to a wider talent pool, because there is work being made and certain people are making money,
Yeah.
But it's again coming back to our first starting of this conversation. It's about building the relationships. You need to find the directors, the producers, the production companies. You have to build a trust with them, and that takes years. Generationally, that stuff is formed in film schools and places where people form friendships and relationships, and that's what you really need, unless you get a lucky break. I mean, like I just did this children's TV show called Jamie's Yoga Adventures, and this woman, it was for Sky, which was a huge thing for me to have my name on the end credits of a Sky production, which is,
Yeah.
and of which they actually are not putting money into local content anymore. So I was probably one of the last gigs that they're going to do for the foreseeable future. But this woman, Jamie Amore, she started in COVID. She started a YouTube channel called Cosmic Kids, and she's had over 500 million views of her stuff. And then Sky saw this and then said, this is a good platform. And they commissioned 40 episodes, of which I was fortunate enough to have done work for the guy who owned the post-production company years ago. I did a few Netflix films for him. He then moved to the UK and this job came up and I got that job. And it could lead to other things, but I only got that break through relationship, which is the huge thing, So let's hope IMD profile and I can wave my flag on LinkedIn and say, I'm here, I can do this for you. And I did this. Let's see.
Yeah. No, and I always say like each break like that is a gateway to the next thing.
Yes, but you need to jump on it and try and somehow take it further, either with marketing but it's on your CV, and that stands for a lot. You just need to let people see your CV.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll print I'll print my CV on my T-shirt and walk around Hollywood.
I mean, and what I'll also say is that it's always surprised me the stuff that comes back years later as well, like relationships that are built years ago, and then they kind of lie dormant for a little while, and then they come back, and it's really interesting how that works. It's difficult because you never know what's gonna hit. You got to approach like 10 people before you get one positive interaction, and I think it's very, very much the same with clients, maybe even more than 10, if it's 10 or 20, and you never know which one it's going to be. And it could happen years later as well.
Well, it's like a blind chicken. Eventually you will pick up a piece of corn.
Yeah. You just got to keep bobbing your head.
Just keep bobbing.
Yeah.
Bobbing. It's so good to be able to share this information with you, Hugh, and it really helps. It's really good to share this kind of stuff. I think we need to talk more about it in the industry. We need to talk more about this stuff.
Yeah, and like it's because whenever I spoke to my old mentor Dan about it, who Dan Salsic, who's in the sort of Joburg jazz scene. He's got 3 daughters, and I always used to say to him, like, why aren't you teaching them music? And he'd say, nah, I don't want them to get into music because it's hard. It's a hard. It can be a hard way of life. And there's this real it's almost like a tendency for people to look at it through rose-tinted glasses and say, you can do it. But I do have a reservation about like necessarily encouraging people to get into music because it can be difficult and not everybody makes it.
I note to self is that if I knew what I knew now, I would not have suggested to myself get into music. Get a real job.
Yeah.
Get a real job, because it is really, really tough. It's wonderful when you can do it, but we can't all be Hans Zimmer. You don't actually have to be Hans Zimmer. If you can be picking up some of the smaller stuff at the bottom, that's fine. But it's also hard to get into that. It's hard to find those crumbs and pieces of work, I mean, to be a film composer or advertising guy, it's tough. It really, really is tough.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it is. There's a lot of tenacity and a lot of like not playing music. I think is the crux of it, which is interesting because I can think of so many talented musicians who ended up like more talented than myself, for example, who ended up not being professional musicians because they're not so good at hustling or doing the networking thing or any of that.
That's a very valid point. And I was reading somewhere the other day is that the music is only a part of what I have. Instead of sitting at home practicing and waiting for the phone to ring, it doesn't come to you. You have to go out and find it. So you gotta
pick up the phone and dial in the numbers.
Yeah, the squeaky door gets oiled,
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, with that in mind, because it does take a lot of tenacity, but with that in mind, my general experience in the advertising world is that nobody begrudges me when I am that squeaky door.
Yeah.
They understand that that's part of the game, and they don't kind of laugh in my face and slam the phone down and say, "Stop! Why do you keep calling me?" They're receptive to me calling them, and so like just as a note of encouragement to anybody that is not discouraged by what we just said 5 minutes ago. If you really want to do it, you can do it, but yeah, you got to, like, there's certain things that you have to accept, and one of those things is that you need to be proactive, and you need to pick up your phone, and you need to, get out there and show your face.
You're right. Not to discourage people who want to do it. Anything is possible. There's a bit of luck involved, but there's also a lot of planning, preparing, meeting. So what I said to myself when I get into music, no, I wouldn't want to discourage anybody from actually wanting to do something that they love, because it is really a beautiful thing to be able to do whatever for ads or for film. I wish you taught me about getting more ad work. Could have done with a lot more ad work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I remember what happened with Dan was that he got the hell in with advertising. He was like, "No, those guys are morons, and whenever they tell me to do something, it's always the wrong thing." So like he just, and so what he said to me was, "You need to go out. You, like, it's part of your job as the studio apprentice or whatever. It's your job to make the calls." And that was like a super valuable lesson for me, actually. I mean, I wasn't that good at making the calls, but it was a really valuable lesson for me in terms of like what it takes to actually be a successful composer is, doing that hustle. And like, I think you're also right that some people do just kind of land in the right place at the right time. Like there's the current composer, that the young composer that everybody likes, is this guy called Ludwig Göransson.
Oh, totally. He's
And
unbelievable. I must tell you a
yeah,
story
and
about that.
again, so I mean, well, that's here now. I was just gonna say he just by like total almost fluke, he was like the roommate of the guy who directed Black Panther. So, and
Well,
Childish Gambino, who he did like a bunch of production stuff with. So like he made friends with those guys, but he was the roommate with the guy. So I mean, there is luck involved as well.
there is like, and he's doing all Christopher Nolan's movies now, which is quite
Yes. Yeah.
remarkable. Now, here's a little story. So I don't know if you know that I worked for South African Airways as a flight attendant for a long time. I was a
Yes, I
flight
did know
attendant.
that. Yeah.
So I was doing a flight from Dakar to New York. I was in business class, and he was going to have a chat to people. There was this guy with his long hair, with a beautiful girlfriend, sitting in business class. I was like, what do you do? He says, I'm a musician, funkos. I said, oh, in my flight attendant thing, I'm also a film composer. And when I'm here, I'm serving the guy. He's actually the business class passenger. And I said, what have you been doing? He says, no, I've just been in Senegal. I'm doing music for a new
Uh,
movie called Black Panther. I said, oh, what's your name? Goran. He says, here, take my number. And I threw the piece of paper away. I never took it serious. He said, I'm doing the movie for Black Panther, and the rest is history. But at least I got to serve him. A very
yeah,
humble
yeah.
guy, by the way. Very humble guy.
Yeah, it sounded like it. I mean, like it sounded like with the Black Panther thing, he really, yeah, like he went to West Africa and like really try to figure out a lot of like African ways of expressing music, and tried not to step too hard on the traditions and stuff. So yeah, he seems, and also I think what's crucial is that is also able to step into, he's able to speak to directors and be able to speak the same language as directors. Like when they have a concept, he's able to take a concept, like that thing with Oppenheimer, like that theme
Yes,
with
yes. That
for Oppenheimer.
incredible theme.
Yeah, so and it's all like very conceptual. Like it's all like there's a reason why he's done everything, and that I think that really speaks to like the sort of big name directors like Christopher Nolan and Denis Villeneuve, whose name I
Well,
can't
yeah,
pronounce.
it's not, but it's like you said. The trick there with old Zimmer and with Goranson is that directors, they know what they want, but they don't know how to interpret it from a music point of view. And people like Hans and that are able to conceptualize their ideas into a musical form. And I think that's where their success is.
Yes.
But having said that, even they get rejected from time to time. No, it's not what I
Yeah.
want. Come back, do it again. That's part of the gig.
Or we're just gonna call the other guy, you know?
We just get what? That also happens. We're gonna call the other guy.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's happened to Zimmer many times, and I always think of this as like a, you know, like I always think of this in terms of artists that people have told me I should really enjoy, and then I listen to them and I don't like them, and I don't like them, and I don't like them until one piece of music hits me of theirs, and I love it, and then I'm a fan. And I think that
Yeah,
there's a parallel there for like what Hans Zimmer and those guys, like we don't hear about their failures. We hear about their successes, because the failures
absolutely.
just once the success has happened, then the failures just go by the wayside. It doesn't, like, they don't matter.
Absolutely. One thing we also, just slightly stepping back into the composing and directors, and as composers, we have to realize that we're not writing for ourselves.
Yes.
We're not here to serve us. We're here to serve them and their story. So that's
Yeah.
what you need to find, how to do it, and how to put your own ego and try and interpret what is he or she actually looking for, because this is not about me. This is about their story and their vision. So I think
So
if you can get that.
So segue this to your own work. Like, once you've had a discussion with a director, or I suppose whatever creative it is that you're speaking to is who's saying, okay, we need music for this thing. What does your process look like?
Well, I try to understand what is first and foremost, what is the emotion that the director or producer is wanting to convey. What are you trying to convey? Is it dark? Is it happy? Is it sad? Is it playful? And then try and understand that concept, because you can't actually write without seeing picture, as some people do. But to get the concept of the emotion first, and then so I found what I like to do these days is to get a melody, piano melody.
Yes.
And then from that piano melody, I will then find the chordal stuff around that, and then I will use that in a mock-up, and then I will orchestrate that melody and piano into, if I'm doing an orchestral thing, into the orchestra from a simple piano thing. First and foremost is understanding the emotion. Once you've got the emotion, and dare I say it, I mean, it helps having a toolbox of knowledge with which to pick from,
Yeah.
which I don't have all the knowledge, but it's out there. People like Rick Beato, the knowledge is out there, but definitely being able to pick from a toolbox to be able to create a particular sound, like things like words like secondary dominance, or,
Yeah.
harmonic planing, or all that stuff. Understanding those comments can really help you as a composer to convey a certain feeling, or knowing modes, saying that the diatonic mode will create that kind of sound, or you use the Lydian scale to create a feeling of sense of wonder and heroism. That's the kind of stuff I learned from my dad, but I've only with the help of YouTube and stuff have I picked up this stuff from other musicians who freely share this knowledge. So I seek it out. But I getting back to your original question, where do I start? Start with the emotion, get a melody, and then use those tools in the toolbox to convey that piece of music that needs to be 30 seconds or a minute or whatever long,
Yeah. I must say it's quite similar for me. I'm a guitarist first and foremost, although I'm not a great guitarist by any means. But I've started gravitating a lot to keyboard. So I'm quite jealous of you, for example, because you've such a good keyboardist already.
Thanks.
But I'm that's where I go, is although is, as you say, like, figure out the emotion, and the melody is like such an important part of how to convey that emotion. It's quite amazing how it's this thread that's come all the way up through the ages, is this idea of a melody.
Absolutely.
and this idea of a singable melody, which is one thing that I like. I'm also not a great singer at all, but what I do is my first impulse in creativity is always like singing and playing, and that seems to work for me.
You know, to get back to the question of having a skill set, you don't have to be Pythagoras. You don't have to be the very fact that you're a human with feelings and emotions, and you've obviously got the talent and able to convey those emotions either by guitar or simplified piano. These days, you don't have to go on in Carnegie Hall, and you can portray, you can convey those emotions in front of your computer with your little keyboard and your plugins, and slowly put it together, and it makes you as valid as somebody who's had years of knowledge, because it's your story and not what the music teacher taught you. It's coming from you.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like. I often think about this sort of Hans Zimmer. I listened to an interview with him a little while back, and he was talking about his process, and he'll often sit there with the director as they're speaking, and he'll say, "All right, well, let's go over to the piano," and he'll start kind of playing around with some ideas, and the director will go, nah, 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 and then at a certain point, the director goes, "Oh, I like that." And then the train of creativity kind of is set on the tracks, and things can move forward.
And the other thing, what we don't realize is these guys work in teams. So we tend to think, no, I've got to be the mixer, the engineer, the composer, the player.
Yes.
It's okay to say, "Come, Sean, I've got this melody here. Can you help me flesh this out?" It's your melody. It's your creation. And then to get somebody else to help and work. That's where I've come now, as I realize that I can't do everything, and that it's okay to share the load, because somebody else, you might hear something that I don't, or feel something that I don't, might just be, oh my God, there it is. So I think people like Zimmer, he has a team of people, but he can afford to. But he didn't always start there. But he's I don't understand it, because he's not completely conservatory schooled, and yet some of his work is some of the most remarkable stuff that comes through. It's remarkable. Dune. I mean, the score for Dune is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, I think that it probably is the result of a team, and I think especially these days, this is what I've heard about his process, is that it is very much a team exercise, in that he's got like a bunch of composers working for him, and then obviously he's got his engineers and all of that kind of thing. So and probably orchestrators as well. Like it's like
Definitely.
it's like what's his name, the guy from Oingo Boingo who does all of the
Danny Elfman.
Danny Elfman. Like he doesn't even read or write music. He just plays the piano and gets a guy to come and transcribe it for him, and then orchestrate it for him.
How incredible is that? And that's what I'm talking about. I mean, I was shocked to hear that he wrote the theme for The Simpsons, and that's the most incredible piece of music.
Yeah, and I guess to a certain degree, there is this thing of like having this sort of humility to accept that we can't do everything. There is in in defense of that idea, of course, this problem that budgets are limited, and it can be like if you need to farm out some of the work to somebody else, it means that you're not getting as much of the budget, which means you might not have enough money to pay the rent for next month or something like that. Okay, well, let's I think I'll end the recording part of the discussion now, but thank you very much, and hopefully we'll be able to repeat this in a year's time when the industry is picked up and we're all rolling in plugins. We've got we've managed to buy the entire Spitfire library.